Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's live event with Karen Newby, who will be joining us. I'm just inviting Karen in now. This evening, we are going to be talking about menopause and nutrition. And here is Karen. Excellent. Karen, it's
Hi
great
there.
to see you.
I'm
I
great to
have to
be
say, that was seamless.
here. It was. I'm quite surprised.
That's fantastic. We've got a few people joining. Lovely. Thank you for joining, Lisa Tenpicked. Lovely name. Welcome. We'll just give it a moment. So while we're starting, welcome to everybody for joining this event this evening. We're here to talk about menopause and nutrition. We've just got 30 minutes, and I know we could fill a day with talking about menopause and nutrition and all the different aspects of it. But I'm delighted to be joined this evening by Karen Newby. Karen is a Brighton-based nutritionist. She's been practicing nutritional therapy for over 10 years. Karen holds a BSc in nutritional medicine, and her areas of specialism are women's hormone health, and in particular, the menopause. Now, in chatting to Karen and in looking at her website, one of the things I really loved is that she describes herself as a realist. So her recommendations are easy to incorporate into your everyday life. So you don't need your own personal trainer, personal nutritionist, personal cook to, and personal shopper to go find a whole bunch of exotic ingredients, which is really great news, Karen, because as you know, if things are too hard and we're too busy to do things, then it's just not going to happen, is it?
Exactly. And that's why, even the smallest of shifts, 15 minutes is basically a 1% of your day. And when you think of it like that, and that's how long it can take you to have breakfast, for example, I'm really big on breakfast, that can make all the difference and have a ripple effect across your day. So yeah, it's all about the smallest of changes to make the biggest difference, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. And look, when we were preparing for this event, we both said we could spend a whole day in this, and indeed you do some brilliant workshops, and we'll talk about those at the end. So menopause nutrition is such a broad topic that it's hard to know where to begin, but we need to start somewhere. So Karen, just share your thoughts with all of your expertise and experience around how nutrition can help get our hormones back into balance and help the control of symptoms.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is a big topic, but I want everyone to know that food is not alternative medicine, and food can be your medicine too. I'm very much a complementary practitioner. I work with women on HRT or those that choose not to. I'm not on HRT, but we have lots of things in our toolbox, or some women do. But I'm very much a believer, and I see it in my practice the whole time, of the transformational effect of foods. And the reason why I really like working with women at perimenopause is because actually perimenopause gives us a chance to, it forces us actually to reset in lots of different ways, with relationships, with work, with, all kinds of things, mentally and physically. And I think for so many of us in our mid to late 40s, we suddenly cannot keep pressing down on that fight or flight stress pedal. And actually our body is like, actually, I can't do this anymore. I can't function like I did in my 20s and 30s, looking after everyone else except myself. So for me, nutritional therapy it encompasses the therapeutic diet. We don't need a balanced diet at perimenopause. We need a therapeutic one, but we also need to shift our lifestyle as well to help put ourselves at the top of the queue. So that's what I really try to help women with. Absolutely, food is important, but how we eat, when we eat, how well we digest, our life load, all of these things are such massive factors. But as a nutritionist, obviously food, we are one big chemical reaction. And if we don't have those kind of minerals and vitamins and spark plugs, as I like to call them, then we just don't go as well. And I think that's when the wheels do fall off at perimenopause, because we just can't keep going at the pace that we used to.
And one of the ways that really manifests, and I know in speaking to the doctors in our clinic, they hear it a lot, is weight gain. You hear from so many women, and I'm sure you do too, that suddenly the pounds start piling up. And then the strategies that they had in the past where they'd shift 2 pounds in a week no longer work, and weight is redistributing itself to around their middle again. So what's going on in our bodies to cause that to happen?
Absolutely. And it's really distressing when suddenly, yeah, that sort of toolkit in your 20s and 30s or early 40s even just doesn't work anymore. It's so frustrating. And I think that's the thing at perimenopause, when we look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't like what we see, or we don't feel like ourselves anymore. But I just can't tell you that how much the power of food and those lifestyle shifts can help. Now, with weight loss, this is a classic example. Basically, the whole kind of old-fashioned dietetic model of calories in plus exercise equals weight loss just doesn't work. And actually, for women generally, even not in perimenopause, you know, we have these kind of hormonal roadblocks that can really stop us from losing weight. And the problem is at perimenopause is that we start to get a male pattern of weight gain, which is this weight around the middle, which however much exercise or calorie restriction you do does not shift because it's hormonally related. So, and this is because of dips in estrogen that can affect the ratio with testosterone. And this is why we get sometimes male pattern hair loss, or, you know, hairs growing on our face. It's all, everything about the body is getting it in balance. The body does want to be well as well. The body does want to be in balance. And that this is what I love about working with women at this age, because actually once feed it the right stuff and get everything back in balance, the body's like, okay, I'll have some more of that. But also this sudden weight gain is because of changes in our metabolism and sugar. So estrogen is actually involved with blood glucose handling. So this is our sensitivity to glucose. So as estrogen dips, or I would say at perimenopause, you know, these can be roller coasters. We can get hyperstimulation of estrogen. It can go up and down. And this can affect our blood sugar balancing, which then you get hangry, you get irritable, you get that need to eat now, or you feel different person after eating. These are all classic signs of lows in blood sugar. And, you know, the less insulin sensitive we are, the more we need insulin, more the storage hormone to get our blood sugar balance, which means we're not fat burning, we're just in storage mode. So, and then the third reason is stress. You know, this weight around the worry waste. So there's three different things, you know, and everyone's different. Some people will have had a hugely stressful few years. You know, I see a lot of women that have literally stopped breastfeeding in their early 40s and bam, straight into perimenopause. Or, you know, I've got women in my clinic that are having to care for elderly relatives and try to keep at the top of their game in their job. And this is hugely stressful, and things that baby boomers didn't have because, you know, mortgages necessarily weren't based on they're based on one salary versus two, or they didn't have teenagers in the house or toddlers. So there's a lot of stress here as well. Life load, big problem with this weight around the middle. But the easiest thing that I find, well, there's a few kind of tips I would say, is my first one is to eat breakfast. And if you don't feel hungry on waking, eat your evening meal earlier. Because if you're waking up not feeling hungry, that can mean that your evening meal is just sort of stuck in the middle of your chest. So eating breakfast, a good quality protein rich breakfast, you know, eggs any which way, avocados, tomatoes, mushrooms. You know, I really like eat natural high protein granola, or Lizzie's high protein granola, you know, with some non-dairy yogurts and some blueberries and some ground linseed. That's really important, the ground linseed, but I'll come to phytoestrogens later. But all of this will give you a massive ripple effect across the day. And actually there's lots of studies on eating a good breakfast and that reducing that need for snacking. You know, we need to help to support blood sugar levels, and this really will help with weight loss. And the second is to watch the sugar. So we've never been so ill, and it's not because of the fat, it's because of the sugar. And what I say a lot of the time is that I'm not about taking sugar out your diet. I think that's unsustainable. You know, and you know, alcohol is liquid sugar. So for me, it's about crowding out the cravings for sugar by more protein and beneficial fats. So protein and fats are like putting coal onto the fire. You know, our flames burn longer, we kick out more heat, which means more satiety, we anchor our hunger. Whereas sugar is so omnipresent, isn't it, in our food, not only sweet foods, but savory foods. And suddenly we're having this massive, it's like pouring petrol on the fire. We get this burst of energy, and then the flames go really small, and that's when we get hangry. And if you're suffering with anxiety or low mood at perimenopause, which many of my clients come to see me about, then that's only going to make it worse. So blood sugar handling, really, really important for many reasons. And actually the weight loss is a nice side effect. It will help you mentally as well.
Yeah, it's just a different way of thinking about it, and the underscoring the importance of protein, I think, in a diet, especially, you know, to maintain, to help with muscle mass and strength as well. Now, you touched on alcohol, very sadly called liquid sugar. One of the things I found, I still have, it still causes hot flushes, but my hot flushes just go off the scale, you know, if I have a glass or two of red wine. Is that something that many women experience, do you think, as well?
Absolutely. So for hot flushes, so what I love about nutrition is, you know, regardless, you know, if you're not on HRT, you can do so much with what's going in here. Excuse me. And that might be, you know, liquids or not all solids. It really does have an effect. So hot flushes are often caused by hot drinks, caffeine, alcohol, sulfites, MSG, chili, heating foods. So with alcohol, you've got the sulfites there, and you've also got the alcohol. So that's a double whammy, especially with red wine. It's often, you know, burning up of the face as well. And with sugar, so if you get your blood sugar in balance, this will help your hot flushes. It's brilliant. You know, I love working with women. Get rid of their night sweats, because then you sleep better. You know, I've recently seen a post about someone talking about sleep inequality, and this is a big thing at perimenopause, because we don't sleep well a lot of the time because of hot flushes and aches and pains, and then we are stressed when we wake up because we're exhausted. So of course you're going to want to eat crap, drink alcohol, drink caffeine. So, you know, I always say tomorrow starts today. So everything that you're putting in here affects how well you sleep, which affects how well tomorrow is. But that's another story, sleep. So with hot flushes, when we get a low in blood sugar, and actually with alcohol, often patients drink it to get to sleep, and it does get you to sleep quite successfully. But what it does is it shunts you into really deep sleep, and then you wake up kind of almost refreshed and can't get back to sleep. But it can also cause a low in blood sugar. So every time we get this high, we feel all really nice and fuzzy, insulin is going round, we're like, great, great. Then we get this sugar crash. And then the brain, which has to keep sugar at a very tight margin, stimulates cortisol, the stress hormone, and adrenaline and noradrenaline. And these are all vasodilatory. So what happens in the night, not only are you waking up because of the stress hormone, but you're also vasodilating and causing these flushes because of the effects of noradrenaline to bring the blood sugar back up. So I can't tell you how much going without alcohol, just test it. See, you know, what it's like with alcohol and what it's not. You know, you will sleep better. And then I say, you know, we all like to, you know, enjoy a glass or two. And I do think alcohol does become quite self-limiting at perimenopause, because the hangovers are so horrendous, largely because our liver is so important at perimenopause, but that's another story. But, you know, our alcohol, I would say, you know, go out, before you go out, drink a large glass of water before you go out. So you're drinking not because you're thirsty. Eat with alcohol as well, lessens the effect. Drinking some water when you get back. I have spritzers, so I'm putting in, you know, a little bit of wine, and then loads, you know, a third wine, and then 2/3 ice and soda water. This is great because it makes the drink go longer, but I'm hydrating myself at the same time, and that works well. Also, if you go to a party and you don't want to drink, I say, rather than saying, no, I don't want to drink, because in the UK, I mean, it's just dreadful, this whole kind of obsession we have with alcohol, and why aren't you drinking alcohol? You know, party pooper, that kind of thing. Whereas in America, if you don't drink, that's fine. Whereas everyone here thinks you're, I don't know, used to think you were pregnant or alcoholic or something. So I say, you know, accept the glass of wine, and then actually no one will notice that you haven't drunk it. And you don't then have to have that conversation of like, well, I'm not drinking, and I'm still going to be present and have a lovely time. Yeah, so that's something that you can try. So yeah, alcohol, it's one of those foods like the sugar that isn't very helpful, and caffeine too. So caffeine also affects our blood glucose. So for many women, they're waking up and having a cup of tea on waking, or a cup of coffee, usually tea, and then they'll have a couple, maybe not have breakfast because they think, oh well, that's kind of 0 calories and da, da, da. But actually what's happening is you're starting this blood sugar roller coaster, because cortisol, caffeine stimulates the release of stored blood glucose, which is why we don't feel hungry, because the body thinks, oh, there's lots of glucose going around, I don't need to eat. But it's still stressing your body out with insulin, the storage hormone. So proper fasting, that's another great way to lose weight, and the reason it's a good way to lose weight is because we're going back to how we were 20,000 years ago. We're going back to how our ancestors ate. And our bodies haven't changed much in 20,000 years. And, our modern day turbocharged world has so massively. So fasting for 12 to 14 hours really does help give the whole system a break. Your liver is part of your digestive system, and your liver, needs to be working well because it's got a lot of jobs to do. So.
Yeah, look, there's some really, really practical tips and all of that, Karen. And one of the things that you touched upon was phytoestrogens and the role they can play. And HRT has been in the news massively over the last few weeks because of all of the appalling shortages. But I think what it's also thrown up, and I've certainly had people say to me, people who can't take, for whatever reason, can't take HRT, it reinforces a real feeling of helplessness with them. Because
Yes.
a feeling of there isn't, what can I do to control my menopause symptoms if I can't take HRT? But I know from chatting to you that there's a huge amount that we can do with nutrition, and you've already mentioned nutrition as a medicine, as a way of helping and healing the body. So any recommendations there?
Yeah, so I would say the sort of the news stories that are bounded around at the moment, they're vital for this conversation about menopause, absolutely. And HRT and NHS kind of interfaces between all of that should be across the country. I feel really strongly about that it should be accessible to all women, and the same amount of advice. I mean, it's desperate, isn't it? I mean, if this was a male affliction, this would have been sorted out many years ago. However, from a nutritionist perspective, it's frustrating for me because there is so much you can do with food without HRT. And as I say, I'm not anti-HRT at all, but we do need this therapeutic diet at perimenopause. And one of the biggest things on my sort of menopause shopping list is phytoestrogens. Now, phytoestrogens are not estrogen. So if you're a breast cancer survivor, you can take phytoestrogens in your food. They have a weak estrogen-like effect on the body. And what happens is that when we have dips in estrogen, they can bind to the receptor sites of the cells, the estrogen receptors, and create an estrogen effect, so a weak estrogen effect on the cells. They're very helpful when we have these roller coasters. They're also really helpful if we have a lot of estrogen, a lot of sort of estrogen dominant symptoms. So estrogen sensitive symptoms like fibroids and heavy periods and breast tenderness and heightened PMS, these can all be to do with too much estrogen or out of balance estrogen with progesterone. So they can help to block more kind of aggressive forms of estrogen or less helpful forms of estrogen. So they're very balancing. And, there's so much research out there on the protectiveness of phytoestrogens. And they are in a very wide amount of foods. And this, again, it suggests to me that, they're completely safe because we're all having them, whether we like it or not. So the biggest source of phytoestrogens are the soy families, the isoflavones, which I'm sure most people know about. So that's, making friends with tofu. Tofu with double O is a nice brand. They do a teriyaki, and I make a lot of Asian dishes. I used to live in Asia, so tofu for me is easy. I'm used to it, but for a lot of people, so the flavored tofus can be quite nice, but always go for the organic ones. Clear Spring is another good brand. And miso and edamame beans you can buy frozen. They're all fresh, and they're nice as a snack. I have Sajade soya yogurt, which is organic and much less sugar than the Alpros, etc. And this is the big form of phytoestrogens. And actually in Asia, they don't suffer with menopausal symptoms like we do, like with hot flushes, because they've had phytoestrogens in their diet for a long time. Other big sources of phytoestrogens are ground linseed, and I recommend, and I don't work for this company, but the linseed farm in Sussex makes beautifully fresh ground linseed that only lasts 3 months, but you can taste the kind of the freshness rather than the stuff that's been on the shelf for years. This has something in it called lignans, and lignans are another family of isoflavones that have this potent estrogen-like effect. Brassicas also have lignans, alfalfa, fennel, pulses, all of these foods have these phytoestrogens in them. So, incorporating ground linseed, for example, into your porridge or into your bircher, now that it's got warmer, adding that to smoothies. The wonderful thing about food is that it helps you on lots of different levels. So eating more phytoestrogens will help increase your fiber, which helps increase your satiety from food because it increases the stretch receptors, which will allow you to lose weight. You'll be eating less, you'll be eating more nutrients as well. These all have, tofu is an amazing source of calcium. So if you are vegan or dairy free, that's another reason to have it. Food is more than its constitute parts, if you like. Although, supplements can be helpful here as well. So incorporating those into your diet as much as possible. You can supplement with them, but I'm always about food first, and certainly for breast cancer survivors to do it through foods, supplements with phytoestrogens. But yeah, this abundance of food also helps to support the microbiome in the gut, and it's all low sugar as well. And this is also helping dementia. There was a lot of kind of not scare stories, but there was a lot of full-on kind of stories about HRT and helping dementia and Alzheimer's, almost like if you didn't take it then you're increasing your risk. And I just wanted to counter that with the fact that increasing your risk, absolutely, we're women. Age is another thing, we can't change those things. However, the biggest risks for dementia are cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes. These are all very much afflictions that are caused in some part anyway by our diet and lifestyle. And there is so much that you can do by food first to help support your mental health. And it will help your vitality, and it will make sure that you're sustaining weight loss. But the biggest thing about Alzheimer's, and actually Dr. Brinton on the documentary, her research, when I looked into it, she was talking about an alternative to HRT called Phytoestrogens. And I looked it up, and it's basically 3 phytoestrogens from different families, but they're all from plants. So, it's a bit like that sort of Benecol flora thing for high cholesterol. Well, if you eat, plant stanols from actually, if you just eat more plants, you're getting the plant stanols, which will also help reduce your cholesterol. So it's a similar kind of thing. So that sort of, that buoyed me as well by the fact that, they are using plants as an alternative to HRT. So it's to me, it just made complete sense. But obviously for me, it's about having the food first anyway.
Yeah, look, I think you've given some brilliant advice there, and some really practical advice, Karen, for people who can't take HRT, don't want to take HRT, and would like to see it, like to find alternative ways to do it. And clearly the food we put in our mouths is a major way to do it, and lots of, as I say, practical advice there. You also touched on dementia, so you were referring to the Channel 4 documentary with Davina McCall, Menopause, and that was really fascinating.
Great.
And really a huge amount of conversation around the cognitive symptoms of menopause, which are very often not understood and not discussed, and which cause so much stress and anxiety for many women, particularly brain fog. So, in the teeing up of our live event this evening, we did touch on brain fog. And just what are your thoughts, or what's your advice on, what we can do from a nutritional perspective to kind of combat brain fog?
Yes. Okay. So there's some, the thing I didn't mention about the documentary, the research by Dr. Brinton was talking about not only the phytoestrogen, but also glucose. And glucose metabolism and how that is affected because of dips in estrogen, and how that can affect plaque buildup and amyloid plaque and Alzheimer's. And actually, Alzheimer's is called the diabetes of the brain. So again, this completely fits with the way I work, which is actually sorting out the blood glucose, because lowering of estrogen means that we need to be eating less sugar as well in order to need insulin less, if you see what I mean, to work with in harmony with reducing levels of estrogen. So with brain health, the biggest bit of advice is to eat more plants, you know, dark and brightly colored berries, and you know, the brassicas, the peppers, the blueberries, the blackberries, the pomegranates, the plums. These all have really protective nutrients in them, such as vitamin C, which is potent antioxidant. The brain does not like too much sugar, doesn't like too many toxins either. But they also have something in them called flavonoids, which helps protect this sort of blood-brain barrier, which the brain separate from the body. But not only this, is that all of those plants will be helping to support your brain, which is your gut. And quite often, foggy head can be caused by things burrowing through the gut wall that might not necessarily be there. And our brain is our gut is our second brain. In you know, as an embryo, our nervous system split in two. Half of it went to the top of the body and half of it went to the bottom, the brain and the gut. That's why we have a gut feeling. So whenever I'm working with brain fog, it's helping support the gut, and it's helping to support, you know, nutrients, you know, flooding the body and brain with micronutrients. So if you have a juicer, you know, making ginger and beetroot, I mean, God, beetroot is so amazing. Really helps with circulation. Our brains need good circulation. If we've got sluggish circulation, you know, our brain needs a huge amount of oxygen, and fat. Oily fish, omega-3. So don't be fat phobic. You know, oils are incredibly important. Our brain is 60% fat. So omega-3 from fish, nuts, seeds, fresh linseed oil if you're vegan. But oily fish are by far the biggest source of something called DHA and EPA, which helps our brain. You know, our nervous system is one big electrical kind of current, and we need the fats to help each neuron talk to each other. So yeah, there would be my sort of two go-tos, really.
Brilliant. So look, I think, would you believe it, our time is up. We've been chatting for half an hour, but I think you packed in a ton of great advice in that time, Karen. And as you see, you've made it really easy to understand and accessible. So thank you so much for, I know you're very busy, taking the time out of your schedule to join with us this evening. And I should say, Karen is running, I have to say, this sounds like an amazing retreat. And if I lived closer to you, I would definitely be signing up for it. It's a one-day natural menopause method retreat on the 14th of June at the Ginger Pig Cove. Maybe not the best name. I'm sure they do a good Sunday roast. But you can sign up for Karen's retreat on her website, which is www.karennewby.com. Karen, thank you so much. A pleasure to have you on here this evening. Really appreciate it. Good night, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.